So, today we're diving into the wild, totally unconventional autobiography of Richard Branson, Losing My Virginity. And let me tell you, it's not really a business manual, it's more like a blueprint for a life lived right on the edge. It shows you the core principles that turned a dyslexic teenager into a global icon.
I mean, it all starts right here. Can you imagine? This is what his headmaster told him when he left school at just 16. It just perfectly captures the knife's edge Branson walked his entire life. There was no middle ground, right? No playing it safe. It was either going to be a spectacular failure or an incredible success. And honestly, that tension is what defined his entire approach to everything.
And that brings us to his first and maybe most famous principle. This phrase is just pure Branson. Apparently, when they were brainstorming titles for his book, an American colleague joked that the subtitle should be, "Oh, screw it, let's do it." Well, it stuck because it wasn't a joke at all. It was his guiding philosophy from day one. It's the mantra that launched magazines, record labels, and yeah, even airlines. You see, for Branson, his lack of formal training was actually his greatest strength. He called himself a virgin in every new industry he went into. And because he didn't have a business degree telling him how things should be done, he was totally free to just ask, well, why can't we do it this way? It forced him to innovate, to build things from the ground up. This whole virginette business mindset meant his early days were, well, they weren't happening in fancy boardrooms. He describes it as a whirlwind of all-embracing, glorious chaos. And it was exactly that lack of a formal plan that created this unique kind of creativity and this incredible ability to bounce back from failure. And here's where it gets really interesting. A learning difficulty actually became his secret weapon. In school, yeah, dyslexia meant he was always struggling. But out in the business world, it meant he couldn't stand jargon and complexity. He had to break everything down into its simplest form just so he could understand it. And that skill, that ability to simplify, became the very foundation of the Virgin brand. And you can see it in his early hustle. His first few tries were complete flops. I mean, rabbits literally ate his Christmas tree profits, and his budgies, well, let's just say they didn't breed as fast as his spreadsheets predicted. But he didn't stop. He launched Student Magazine out of a basement and somehow charmed his way into interviews with people like John Lennon. When the magazine was failing, he just pivoted, right? He started selling discount records by mail that keep it alive. And that eventually evolved into a revolutionary recording studio called The Manor, a place where artists could live and create. And that idea, that led directly to the multi-million-selling album Tubular Bells. This really gives you a feel for how unconventional those beginnings were. This wasn't some slick corporate office. This houseboat was his home, his headquarters, and the chaotic heart of the entire Virgin operation. It's just such a powerful symbol of his resourcefulness and his complete rejection of the corporate rulebook.
In this photo, it just says it all. Branson is just a teenager here. He had no credentials, no formal training, just pure, unadulterated nerve. I mean, getting access to Mick Jagger wasn't about having a 5-year business plan. It was about having the audacity to just go and ask. He proved so early on that passion and just refusing to give up could open doors that were supposed to be locked tight.
So that audacity naturally leads to his second big principle. Risk is rocket fuel. Branson didn't just accept risk, he actively chased it. For him, these life-threatening adventures and high-stakes business gambles weren't two separate things. Nope. They were two sides of the exact same coin, and he used them to launch his brand into the stratosphere. Think about it. His attempts to break world records in powerboats and hot air balloons were absolutely brilliant, calculated marketing stunts. He was launching Virgin Atlantic, this tiny airline going up against giants like British Airways. In a world before the internet, how do you even begin to compete with their massive advertising budgets? Well, you do something so audacious, so dangerous, that the world's media has no choice but to give you millions and millions of dollars in free publicity.
And make no mistake, the stakes were incredibly real. On the left, you've got the Virgin Atlantic Challenger just powering across the ocean. On the right, that's the same boat sinking after it capsized just a few miles from the finish line. He failed to break the record, but the dramatic rescue, the story of this near triumph, it captured the world's imagination. The publicity was absolutely priceless. He proved that even a spectacular failure could be a massive win.
Okay, this is one of my favorite stories from the book. He's at this very formal lunch with the entire board of Esso, who had just agreed to provide all the fuel for one of his boat challenges. He stands up to thank them and with total confidence promises to plaster the name of their biggest rival, BP, absolutely everywhere. He realizes his mistake, sees the horrified looks, and literally crawls under the table out of sheer embarrassment.
It's just hilarious, but it also shows you his authentic, unpolished, and just deeply human side.
Now, as his empire got bigger and bigger, Branson's focus started to change. He began to see his entrepreneurial skills not just as a way to make a profit, but as this incredibly powerful tool that could be used to tackle some of the world's most complex problems.
The real turning point came during a trip to South Africa. He writes about being just completely devastated by what he saw in hospitals and orphanages, just the sheer scale of the HIV/AIDS crisis. And it wasn't just a business decision. It was this deeply personal moment that led him to make a public promise, to dedicate half of his time and a ton of his resources to philanthropy.
And this is how he started to think about it. Looking at figures like these, he saw these huge global issues not as these bottomless pits for charity money, but as solvable equations. The numbers were massive, sure, but they weren't infinite. He started to think, okay, how can we apply the same efficiency, the same innovation we use in business to start chipping away at these problems?
And you know, at the heart of all of it was his family. The drive to build a better world for his kids, Holly and Sam, that was the personal fuel for both his death-defying stunts and his world-changing philanthropy.
So this is Branson, the entrepreneur, putting his mind to charity. He didn't just want to write checks. He created a whole new model. Instead of relying on endless donations, he built healthcare clinics that could actually become self-sustaining. So, critical treatments are free, but they charge modest fees for other services to help cover the costs. And even better, they help patients start their own small businesses, creating a local economy right there around the clinic. It's a system that's literally designed to work itself out of a job.
So, when you boil it all down, the Branson way is really this one unified philosophy. It all starts with having the courage to be a virgin in a new field, which forces you to simplify everything. That simplicity, that fun-loving approach, gives you the freedom to turn risk into your best marketing. And ultimately, that leads you to understand that the same tools that build an empire can be used to solve the world's biggest problems and leave things a whole lot better than you found them. I mean, the entire story of Richard Branson is about breaking rules. The rules of business, of society, of what anyone thinks is possible. And it leaves us with a really powerful question to ask ourselves. What's the one established rule, the one piece of conventional wisdom that's holding you back? And what would happen if you just decided, you know what, screw it, let's do it?